We got the man.
Obviously, Draymond Green is the topic of conversation. Over the last 24 hours, he's been suspended indefinitely by the NBA, and we want to talk to Monte Poole about it. Monte Poole, NBC Sports Bay Area, longtime writer and columnist in the Bay Area, covers the Golden State Warriors. Monte, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it, my man.
You got it, my man.
You know what? I was just thinking about the way I felt yesterday and the way I feel today. I'm just going to start a conversation. The thing that's hit me in the last 24 hours, and maybe people will say, well, no kidding, Steinmetz, but we got a problem with Draymond Green that feels like the league is further along than the public about how detrimental this behavior is, and that this is more than 4 or 5 games or 6 or 8 games.
Yeah, at this stage, it's not about how many games he misses. I mean, I think the league has already discovered that suspensions are not, they don't help. They don't make a difference. And it's really more about Draymond getting to a point where not just his basketball, but his life. I mean, obviously there's something going on, and it needs to be addressed beyond what, a coach or a teammate can do. No amount of talking up Draymond. I mean, the Warriors have met with Draymond so many times over the past few years, so many times. And we're still here. We're still here. And in fact, it's accelerating. You're watching this over the course of this season. It's gotten worse. It's gotten worse. And so, we were talking about this on the post-game show the other night. I was talking about this with Festus Ezeli. And to do at this point, it's really about Draymond. The Warriors have their thing to deal with, and Draymond has his, and they are separate. They are separate because the Warriors cannot, on their own, say, we'll talk to Draymond and we'll get him right. No. Draymond has to talk to somebody else, and somebody professional. He has to seek that kind of help. It's right at that stage right now. So we all know what kind of basketball player he is when he's not involved in the sideshow. And there were a couple of games there where I was like, Draymond seems to be okay. He's going to play basketball now. The game in L.A. against the Clippers, the Warriors lost that game, but Draymond played really well, and he did not get involved in the sideshow. I was like, is this progress? Is this progress? He can play basketball really well and not get caught up in his antics. And then a couple games later, boom, here we are. So, it's not about 5 games, 10 games, 15 games. Like Joe Dumars said this morning, it's about Draymond getting right, not just for basketball, not just for the Warriors, but for his life.
Wow, that's profound, Monty. Let me ask you this, because we talked about it. Like, this is not fun, and I've criticized Draymond at times throughout the years. But yesterday, I was waiting, Monty, for a numeric number, and I was going to move on with my life, come in here and talk about it with Steiny, 5, 10, 3. But when I heard indefinite, Monty, I'm telling you, something in my mind, I just defaulted to like, is this the end? Like, would you call me crazy or any Warrior fan that thinks, okay, is there a remote, like minute possibility that Draymond is not a Warrior or don that uniform on again?
Yeah, that's hard to say right now because, first of all, what's his trade value? If they decide they want to trade him. Second of all, they've stood behind him for so many things in the past. So at a point now where they can't stand behind him anymore, where are you with this? So you look at where things are, and if you're Draymond, you got to be asking yourself some serious questions. Some serious questions. So the number of games were never going to be an issue. They've tried that. And we saw where that got them. So at this stage, I think will he be a Warrior when he comes back? At this point, I think so. We don't know when that'll be. This is kind of like the Ja Morant situation, because Ja Morant was suspended indefinitely at first, and then they said, "Okay, 25 games."
That's a good point.
That's what they concluded. And keep in mind, like I've been telling people all along, the NBA's TV contracts end after next season, and they're already negotiating the next contracts, and they can promote Steph and LeBron and Luka and all these guys, but you don't want to go to a TV network and have them say, well, what about Draymond? What about Ja Morant? This is the kind of image the NBA is desperate to avoid. They've been here before. back in the 80s when they had drugs involved in the league. They've had situations in the past where guys' conduct on the court, malice in the palace. I mean, for a while, people were like, "Oh man, do I want to go near the NBA?"
Right.
And the NBA is in a pretty good place here lately, and a lot of that is because of the Warriors and Steph. And so here, Draymond is doing these things, and it could impact the negotiations. And the league office is acutely aware of this because they're the ones who are deeply in the negotiations. And they don't want to see this. They don't want to have to deal with this. They don't want to have a network come to them and say, how can we be sure that your league is going to stay on track and play basketball when you got a couple of people running around doing stuff that's crazy like Draymond and Ja? What they did is different. But neither one of those guys is guys that the league wants to promote right now. This is the kind of thing you're dealing with. So there's a lot on the table right now. And I thought Draymond would understand when he talked to Joe Dumars last time, after the Gobert incident. Dude, you're messing with our money, and our money is your money. Mm-hmm. Our money is your money. The more money we can make, whether it's BRI, basketball-related income, or TV rights or whatever, the more money there is for all of us. Right. And so, we want to have all the leverage we can when we go into these negotiations. And dude, you're kind of hurting us here. You're putting us in a bad light. We don't want that.
Monte Poole joining us on 95.7 The Game, covers the Warriors for NBC Sports Bay Area. Great perspective on the franchise for sure. Guru asks me a question frequently, Monty, and I have not answered it other than I don't know ever. What do you think Joe Lacob's thinking?
That's a fair question. That's a good question.
Yeah, it is.
Joe's thirst for winning is pretty wild. I mean, he definitely wants to win, and he knows that Draymond has been a huge part of that. We all go back to what happened in 2016. When Draymond dropped out for a game because what he did again. The Warriors weren't the same, and they didn't win that series. They lost a 3-1 lead. And again, like I said earlier, they've stood behind him for all his transgressions in the past. And here we are now. This past summer, 5 months ago, they gave him a new contract.
Yep.
3 years, 4-year option, And so this is them standing behind him saying, we believe in you. We believe in you. And what's Draymond done since then? I mean, he's already missed almost half the game for one reason or another.
Right.
He's been ejected 3 times. He's been suspended for games. I mean, so you look at what like I said, it's accelerating, man. And Joe has to be like heartsick about this because it's not just, it's like, he got into it with Anthony Edwards, got into it with Donovan Mitchell, got into it with Rudy Gobert. Yeah. And we haven't seen him at this level. We haven't seen his misbehavior at this rate ever. There's been isolated incidents, but he's 33 years old, and he was just saying the other day that he can't be the same guy at 33 that he was at 26. He's going the wrong way. And so if you're Joe, a part of you has to wonder, maybe even regret, did I make the right decision in signing off with that contract? Nope. And keep in mind, though, that, the Warriors have stood behind him through all of this. They traded Jordan Poole. Why? Because they knew that it was time for Jordan to go, yes, but also Draymond. Yep. And so if you're Joe, you got to be wondering where do you go from here. Like I said, his trade value is not great. And it is at a point now where it's not about basketball, it's about Draymond's life.
Wow, that's deep. Monty, speaking of where do you go from here, there's another component, the team component. They take on the Clippers tonight. I asked my producer, Evan, who has to step up? He mentioned Kuminga, but it's more than just Jonathan. Like, how do they tackle this absence?
It's a little bit of everything. You need more Kuminga. I think, you're going to probably see the rotation shift. I mean, Kuminga's the obvious guy to plug in as a starter. But if you plug in Kuminga, do you stay with Looney or do you go with Sarge? That's an option there. And I'm sure these are all things that they're looking at, the coaching staff is looking at. But you're going to need more hands on deck. I mean, I think, Podziemski's been really good. He's been really good. But his role has kind of been filling in like that Gary Payton II role in some ways. but he's done a little bit of everything. He's done some of what GP2 does. He's done some of what Draymond does. His rebounding has been phenomenal for a guy his size. It's crazy. JK is the main guy you look at and say, okay, JK, we need you to be what you can do. You can't be Draymond. You know, he doesn't have Draymond's capacity for basketball intellect. He doesn't have that. But so you can't replace that part. But there's things he can do that gives the Warriors some help, and mostly just be an impact player in the paint. You know, attack the rim, grab some rebounds, defend, you know, do those things. That'll help this team. We've seen it. We saw it last game. You know, when the bench scored 80 points and Draymond was sitting in the locker room, you know. So that's the main guy. But, yeah, this guy, I mean, I think you should see some Trace Jackson Davis.
Yep. Give
him a shot out there. Have him work pick and roll with Chris Paul. You know, you've got some ideas out there. You got some options there. But Draymond, as an individual, what he brings when he's at his best, they don't have that anywhere else. I'm not sure you can find that in the league.
Monty, a couple of days ago, I got kind of passionate that we were talking about Coach Kerr, and I know he's a Don around here, 4 rings. And I just remembered the conversation he had, and he went public with it with Moody, and he said he was out of the rotation, and Moody went to Sacramento, balled out, and was taken out. Talked to Kuminga. He didn't play the first half against Portland. He came in and saved him. Am I crazy to say, you know what, that I can criticize Coach Kerr for those moves? Like, how could you come to that decision and then get bailed out with the, like, do you follow me? Like, I didn't like that those guys stepped up when you deemed them not worthy to help, and then they helped you.
Yeah, I mean, Steve the next day said he screwed that up, and he did. You know, it was obvious. Moses was the one guy making shots. He was 4-4 in that fourth quarter. The rest of his teammates were 2 of 17. So he's kind of keeping the Warriors afloat, and then he comes out of the game for Wiggins, which you understand Wiggins coming in. Wiggins was the team's best player that night. But Klay Thompson was done in the fourth quarter. And we could see it, and Steve didn't see it because of his loyalty, I think. You know, he knows that Klay, Steph, Draymond are the guys who got him where he is, got the team some championships. So he believes in him. He's going to ride with those guys. But at this point, yeah, I mean, he's got to be at a point where he's saying, you know what, I got to do what I got to do no matter who's out there. And obviously, of those 3 guys, only Steph is playing at a high level. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does. But he has to realize that, okay, it's time to start shifting away from Klay a little bit and from Wiggins a little bit and give the young guys a shot.
Monty, thank you so much for your time. As always, appreciate it. And, boy.
It'll be interesting. Yeah, no, there it is.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Thanks, Monty. Appreciate it, man.
All right, fellas. Take care.
Monte Poole, NBC Sports Bay Area.